Now I'll go across to the India Southeast Asia linkages. As early as in the Ramayana, Southeast Asia has been mentioned. There was that incident after Sita Mata was abducted by Ravan. So Sugriv, who was the king of chief of Ram's army, sent military detachments in all the four directions to search for her, which one is aware of after having read Ramayana. And the one which the detachment which was sent to the east, it mentions that they were sent to Yavadvipa, and Yavadvipa actually is the island of Java. So one finds mention of Southeast Asian islands even in the Ramayana. There was a Hindu Tarumagara kingdom which was established in West Java around 400 BC. So as early as 400 BC, one of the first Hindu kingdoms was established in Southeast Asia, and they produced among the earliest inscriptions in Indonesian history. And these Taruma kings were worshippers of Vishnu. The Indian connection increased during the time of the Cholas, as I mentioned earlier, and it was only around 425 CE when Buddhist influence started appearing in this Southeast Asian region. So the Indian influence in Southeast Asia was at its zenith between 290 BCE and about the 15th century CE. So this would be inclusive of the Hindu as well as the Buddhist period, covers both the periods. The kingdoms of India's northeast maintained trade relations with Southeast Asian countries such as Burma, Thailand, Indonesia and Cambodia. And this Sanskritization or Indianization of this region took place during this period, and it influenced the language, literature, culture, calendar, traditions and belief systems of the indigenous people. The kingdoms, as I mentioned, were initially all Hindu kingdoms, and later in most of these regions the Mahayana Buddhists influence came through, and in most of the cases, even after the Buddhist influences came, the religion followed was an amalgamation actually of the two, about which I'll again talk later. So it was not that Hinduism vanished, but they amalgamated sort of and continued both. The most common form of Hinduism in this region was Shaivism, and after that came Vaishnavism. And it is interesting to know that the name of Burma, of the country, is supposed to be derived from the name Brahma. So it was that influence was so much in the ancient times. The Khmer kings of Cambodia, they actually worshipped Harihara, who is an amalgamation of Vishnu and Shiva, and their statues have been even found in Badami caves in North Karnataka, signifying the close ties which the Khmers had with South Indians. And one should remember that before Hinduism appeared in the region, the locals did have their own indigenous civilization. However, it was not much advanced. The French scholar Georges Codes, he describes the evolution of the indigenous cultures, and he mentions that the Hindu influences brought a highly developed and sophisticated religion, literature, art, architectural style, Sanskrit language, systems of philosophy, and the institution of kingship, and stories from the Ramayana, Mahabharata, and the Purans. And observance of injunctions of the Dharma Shastras, the ancient text on the law and conduct which we have in Hinduism, and in particular the Manusmriti also was very much common in the ancient Hindu kingdoms and followed quite strictly. Now, it took about 200 to 300 years, during which time the entire Indochina, Burma, Siam, Malaya Peninsula, Cambodia, Laos, Vietnam, the islands of Java, Sumatra, Borneo, Celebes, and Bali, right up to the Philippines, came under varying degrees of Hindu influence. Initially, most of this was through the trade routes by the Indian traders who spread across this region, and there the reason for that was the abundance of gold and spices in this area, which attracted these traders. And then, as knowledge of the monsoon winds and the monsoon's direction spread over time, mainly after the 1st century CE, the sea routes became not only more dependable and regulated, but improved means of transport helped grow this trade activity, Indian trade activity in this region. And elaborate trade routes were established.